All right, today we are digging into one of the most unbelievable financial implosions in modern history, the collapse of FTX. But this isn't just another story about crypto or bad trades. This is really a deep dive into the mind of a genius, and it's a look at what happens when incredible intelligence isn't balanced out by wisdom. Let's just start with the sheer scale of this thing.
$32 billion. I mean, just let that number sink in. That's what Sam Bankman-Fried's crypto empire was worth at its absolute peak. This is the kind of number that gets you on magazine covers, that has people calling you the next Warren Buffett.
And then poof, it was gone. Not over a few years, not even a few months, it was erased in 9 days. The whole thing was kicked off by a single leaked document on November 2nd, 2022. That one document started a chain reaction that just vaporized $32 billion. The speed is absolutely mind-blowing.
And that really brings us to the core question we're tackling here. See, this isn't just about some scam artist who finally got caught. The really fascinating part, the psychological puzzle, is this. How does a guy with world-class intelligence, a true genius, convince himself that what he was doing wasn't, at its heart, fraud?
To even begin to answer that, you have to get inside the head of Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF, and understand how he saw the world. His whole mindset, his whole reality was built around one single powerful idea. The world is just a big, complex puzzle that's waiting for him to solve it. And if you look at his life, it was like the perfect training ground for this exact worldview. I mean, think about it. His parents were Stanford law professors. He went to these elite math camps for super gifted kids. He gets a physics degree from MIT. And then he becomes a star trader at Jane Street, which is a legendary high-tech trading firm. Every single step of his life reinforced and rewarded one thing: recognizing patterns and optimizing systems. This really lays out the two different worlds at play here. On one hand, you have SBF's worldview. Reality is a puzzle, a system to be understood, a problem to be optimized. It's all just patterns and code. But then you have the other world, the world of human ethics. That world is ambiguous, it's messy, it's built on things like trust and relationships. He was an absolute master of one of these worlds, and a complete beginner in the other.
So, how does that puzzle-solving brain lead to a total catastrophe? Well, it happens when you start to build this incredibly powerful moral story around yourself. A story that's so good, so compelling, that it becomes like a fortress, protecting you from the consequences of your own worst decisions.
There's actually a psychological term for this. It's called moral licensing. It's this cognitive bias where if you do a bunch of good deeds, you start to see yourself as a fundamentally good and ethical person. And that good self-image gives you a kind of unconscious permission slip to bend or even break the rules later. It's not really hypocrisy because that's conscious. This is a deeper kind of self-deception where you truly believe you're one of the good guys, so anything you do must be justifiable. And SBF didn't just get a moral license, he built a moral empire. He was the global poster child for effective altruism, this whole philosophy of earn to give. He donated millions and millions to important causes. But he also spent a fortune manufacturing this image of trust. We're talking $55 million to Tom Brady, $20 million to Gisele Bündchen, a Super Bowl commercial with Larry David. He even spent $135 million to put FTX's name on an NBA arena. And this quote just says it all. You can hear how authentic this self-image was to him. In his own mind, he wasn't some greedy crypto bro. No, he was a utilitarian hero, a kind of Robin Hood, making a fortune for the greater good. And that powerful belief became a shield. It deflected any criticism, both from the outside world and, more importantly, from inside his own head.
But here's the thing about a shield like that. It also creates a massive blind spot. And in this case, it was $1 billion blind spot right at the very heart of his empire. The failure here wasn't just about money. It was deeply, deeply psychological.
So picture this. They're all down in the Bahamas, and SBF creates the perfect echo chamber. He's surrounded by this small group of young, super smart people who all believed in him and the mission. And he very deliberately avoided any kind of adult supervision or accountability that could have prevented disaster. There was no independent CFO, there was no chief risk officer, there was no external board, there was just Sam.
And with nobody to tell him no, this is what happened. FTX had about $16 billion in customer assets. Of that, a staggering $10 billion had been loaned to his other company, Alameda Research. Let's be clear about what that means. He was taking customer money from his exchange and using it to make huge, incredibly risky bets.
Now, here's the crucial part. This wasn't some secret that nobody knew. He was warned, explicitly. 6 months before the whole thing blew up, the CEO of Alameda, Carolyn Ellison, literally showed him a spreadsheet. The math was right there in black and white, and it was undeniable. If the market crashed, they would be completely wiped out. This was the moment of truth.
And his response, his actual written response was, yep, and could also get worse. I mean, can you even imagine? He looked at mathematical proof of catastrophic failure, acknowledged it, and then he went ahead and approved another $3 billion in high-risk investments. This wasn't business anymore. This was pure psychological denial. And it was fueled by this toxic cocktail of genius, hubris, and that powerful moral license he built for himself.
And all of that brings us to the end. The final 9 days, when that carefully constructed story, that fortress of legitimacy, finally came crashing down against the hard wall of reality. And it all happened so fast. It's like a line of dominoes. November 2nd, the balance sheet gets leaked, showing Alameda is basically propped up by funny money that FTX just invented. 4 days later, a huge rival says they're selling off that funny money, which starts a total panic, a classic bank run. By November 9th, a potential rescue deal falls apart the second they look at the books. And just 2 days after that, on the 11th, it's over. Bankruptcy. The whole thing is gone. And what's crazy is the underlying facts didn't change in those 9 days. The only thing that changed was people's belief in the story.
So what's the takeaway here? What's the bigger lesson? Well, when you zoom out, the story of FTX is really this powerful, universal lesson about the critical difference between being smart and being wise.
See, intelligence is about calculation and speed. Wisdom is about context and judgment. Intelligence is great at solving complex problems, but wisdom is what helps you ask if you're even working on the right problem in the first place. And here's the most important part. Intelligence, especially genius-level intelligence, is an expert at building incredibly elaborate, logical-sounding rationalizations to justify terrible decisions. Wisdom, on the other hand, requires humility. It requires accountability. SBF had intelligence in spades, but he was bankrupt when it came to wisdom. And you know, the scary thing is, this isn't a one-off story. It's a pattern. We've seen this movie before, with people like Elizabeth Holmes at Theranos or with companies like Enron. You have a brilliant, unsupervised founder who gets way too much power. They build an echo chamber of believers around them. They use their own genius to talk themselves into making insane choices, and because there's zero accountability, the whole thing eventually comes crashing down. It's a recipe for disaster.
Which really just leaves us with this final thought to chew on. For any founder, any leader, anyone trying to build something great, the story of FTX is a profound cautionary tale. It teaches us that the biggest threat to your empire isn't ever going to be your competition. It's not the market. The greatest threat is the blind spot that your own success creates, that quiet, creeping belief that you're the exception, and that the normal rules just don't apply to you.